Dr. Walter Adams sprints down the sterile corridor of the interstellar medical outpost Gamma 7, his heart racing. An urgent alert blares through the station's comm system. A Xindi spacecraft, carrying a critically ill passenger, is moments from docking. As Walter reaches the airlock, medical kit clutched tightly, he steels himself for a pivotal encounter. The Xindi, a newly discovered alien race, have long avoided human contact. Their bioluminescent skin and telepathic abilities have made them objects of fascination and wariness in equal measure. The airlock hisses open. A hover gurney glides through, bearing a slender figure. Lena, a young Xindi female, lies motionless, her iridescent scales flickering weakly. Walter's trained eye immediately spots the abnormality, an unusual energy signature emanating from her lower abdomen. The Xindi captain, towering and stern, locks eyes with Walter. Our healers couldn't diagnose her condition, he states, a hint of desperation in his telepathic projection. She's been experiencing intense discomfort in her reproductive region for days. Walter nods, mind racing. This is more than a medical emergency. It's a unique opportunity to study Xindi physiology and potentially bridge the gap between their species. Take her to the medical bay, he orders, voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. As they rush through the station, Walter becomes acutely aware of the weight on his shoulders. His actions in the next few hours could shape the future of human-Xindi relations. The medical bay doors slide open, revealing a state-of-the-art facility gleaming with advanced diagnostic equipment. Lena is carefully transferred to the examination table. Walter activates the bay's systems, and holographic displays spring to life, mapping the Xindi's internal structure. The doctor's eyes widen as he takes in the significant anatomical differences. Focusing on the source of Lena's discomfort, Walter identifies a previously undocumented organ between her legs. It's clearly related to reproduction, but fundamentally different from human genitalia. As he begins to explain his findings, Lena's large, almond-shaped eyes widen in shock and confusion. Walter pauses, realizing the delicacy of the situation. He must navigate this carefully, balancing medical necessity with cultural sensitivity. Taking a deep breath, he begins to explain what the organ between her legs does, choosing his words with utmost care. Lena's skin pulses with a mix of colors, reflecting her tumultuous emotions. Walter presses on, determined to help her understand her own anatomy and alleviate her suffering. Suddenly, an alert sounds. Walter glances at the long-range scanners. More Xindi ships have appeared. The tension in the room ratchets up a notch. Are they concerned about Lena's well-being or suspicious of the human's intentions? As Walter turns back to his patient, he knows that the next few moments are crucial. His ability to effectively communicate and treat Lena's condition could determine the course of future human-Xindi interactions. With steady hands and a clear mind, he prepares to delve deeper into the mystery of Xindi physiology, acutely aware that he's making history with every move. Walter turned back to Lena, his mind racing with the potential implications of what he was about to do. The holographic displays surrounding them cast an ethereal blue glow across the medical bay, illuminating the intricate details of Xindi anatomy. "Lena," he began, his voice calm despite the tension in the air, "I believe I've identified the source of your discomfort. There's an organ here," he pointed to the holographic representation floating between them, "that seems to be related to reproduction. It's unlike anything we've seen in human physiology." Lena's large, almond-shaped eyes widened, a mix of curiosity and apprehension flickering across her features. Her skin pulsed with a soft, iridescent light that seemed to shift with her emotions. Walter noticed the change in her bioluminescence and made a mental note. He gestured to the hologram, using simple movements to supplement the universal translator's efforts. "This organ appears to be producing an unusual type of energy. The buildup of this energy is likely causing your pain." As he spoke, the medical bay doors slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Marcus Stone strode in, his expression taut with concern. "Doctor," he said in a low voice, "we have a situation. More Xindi ships have arrived. They're demanding updates on Lena's condition and expressing concerns about potential experimentation." Walter's heart made. He knew the delicacy of the situation extended far beyond the walls of the medical bay. An idea formed in his mind, a gesture that could potentially diffuse the tension and foster trust. "Commander," he said, "request permission to invite a Xindi medical observer into the examination room. Transparency might be our best option here." Stone nodded, relief evident in his eyes. "I'll make the arrangements immediately." As Stone left to communicate with the Xindi ships, Walter turned back to Lena. Her skin was pulsing more rapidly now, the colors shifting in mesmerizing patterns. Intrigued, he asked, "Lena, may I take detailed scans of your skin's light patterns? I believe they might provide valuable insights into your condition." Lena nodded, her movements graceful, despite her discomfort. Walter activated the bay's advanced imaging systems, capturing the intricate dance of light across her scales. Minutes later, the doors opened again. A stern-looking Xindi female entered, her scale patterns more intricate and pronounced than Lena's. She introduced herself as Dr. Zara, the chief medical officer of the Xindi fleet. Walter straightened, acutely aware of the scrutiny he was now under. He began to explain his findings to Dr. Zara, who listened with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. "The organ causing Lena's discomfort," Walter said, manipulating the holographic display, "is a specialized gland that produces a unique type of energy. Based on its location and function, I believe it's critical for Xindi reproduction." Dr. Zara's eyes narrowed as she studied the hologram. "You are correct," she admitted, a note of surprise in her voice. "Our medical science has never fully understood this aspect of our physiology. It's been shrouded in cultural taboos." Walter felt a surge of excitement. This was more than a medical breakthrough. It was a potential bridge between their species. "Dr. Zara, if you're willing to share, any information you have could be crucial in treating Lena's condition." The Xindi doctor hesitated, then nodded. "Xindi reproduction involves an energy exchange between partners, but the specifics have long been a mystery to us." As they discussed, Walter's mind raced with possibilities. He turned to the equipment lining the walls of the medical bay, an idea forming. "I believe we might be able to alleviate Lena's discomfort using a modified version of human bioelectric therapy. It could safely stimulate and release the built-up energy in her gland." Dr. Zara's scales flickered with what Walter interpreted as concern. "And the risks?" "There are some," Walter admitted. "Xindi physiology is still largely unknown to us, but I believe the potential benefits outweigh the risks." Before either doctor could continue, Lena's voice, soft but determined, cut through the tension. "I want to try it," she said, her words translated by the station's systems. "I trust you, Dr. Adams, and if this can help advance Xindi medical knowledge, I want to contribute." Walter met Lena's gaze, saw the grit in her eyes. He nodded, then turned to calibrate the bioelectric equipment. As he worked, he felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This wasn't just about treating a single patient. It was a pivotal moment in human-Xindi relations. With steady hands, he prepared the modified bioelectric emitter. Dr. Zara watched closely, her skepticism giving way to cautious interest. Lena lay still on the examination table, her skin pulsing with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Walter positioned the emitter over Lena's lower abdomen, where the specialized gland was located. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Lena nodded, her large eyes fixed on the ceiling. With a deep breath, Walter activated the device. A soft hum filled the air as the emitter came to life, bathing Lena's abdomen in a gentle, pulsing light. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then suddenly, Lena's skin erupted in a dazzling display of color and light. The bioluminescence spread from her abdomen outward, washing over her entire body in waves of brilliant, shimmering hues. Walter and Dr. Zara watched in awe as the light show continued, each pulse seeming to release some of the pent-up energy within Lena's body. The young Xindi's face, initially tense with discomfort, gradually relaxed into an expression of relief. As the treatment progressed, Walter kept a close eye on the monitors, tracking Lena's vital signs and the energy levels within the gland. The readings were unlike anything he had ever seen before, a unique interplay of biology and energy that defied conventional medical understanding. Minutes passed, feeling like hours. Finally, the light show began to subside, Lena's skin settling into a soft, contented glow. Walter deactivated the emitter and leaned over his patient. "How do you feel?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lena's eyes fluttered open, a smile spreading across her face. "The pain, it's gone," she said, wonder evident in her voice. "I feel lighter, renewed." Dr. Zara stepped forward, her own scales shimmering with what Walter now recognized as excitement. "This is remarkable," she said, her stern demeanor melting away. "You've unlocked a secret of a Xindi physiology that has eluded us for generations." As Walter began to process the implications of what had just occurred, a new alert sounded from the long-range scanners. More Xindi ships were approaching, their intentions unknown. The doctor knew that what happened next would be crucial in shaping the future of human-Xindi relations. With Lena recovering and Dr. Zara buzzing with questions, Walter prepared himself for the challenges ahead. The treatment had been a success, but it was clear that this was just the beginning of a much larger journey of discovery and cooperation between their species. Walter turned his attention back to Lena, his mind laser-focused on the task at hand. The bioelectric equipment hummed softly as he made final adjustments, tweaking the settings to align with the unique aspects of Xindi physiology revealed by his scans. "Lena, are you ready to begin?" Walter asked, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. She nodded, her large eyes fixed on him with a mixture of trust and apprehension. Dr. Zara stood nearby, her scales shimmering with barely suppressed anticipation. Walter took a deep breath and initiated the treatment. A soft blue glow emanated from the equipment as it sent carefully controlled bioelectric pulses into Lena's newly discovered gland. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, without warning, Lena's body arched slightly off the examination table. Her skin erupted in a breathtaking display of color, waves of iridescent light rippling across her form. The energy contained within her gland began to release, manifesting as a shimmering aura that enveloped her body. "Fascinating," Dr. Zara murmured, her earlier skepticism replaced by rapt attention. She leaned in, recording every detail on her personal medical device. As the treatment progressed, Walter noticed an unexpected development. The medical bay's equipment began to flicker, power levels fluctuating erratically. Some of the more sensitive instruments emitted high-pitched whines of protest. "The energy release is interfering with our systems," Walter said, his fingers flying over the control panel. He quickly adjusted the procedure, modulating the bioelectric pulses to minimize the disruptive effects. "There, that should stabilize things." Lena's face, initially tense with discomfort, gradually relaxed. The pulsing of her skin became more rhythmic, less frantic. It was clear the treatment was working. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the medical bay. Commander Stone's voice crackled over the intercom, tension evident in his tone. "Dr. Adams, we have a situation. The Xindi ships are detecting unusual energy signatures from the station. They're demanding answers and threatening to board if we don't provide them immediately." Walter glanced at the delicate procedure in progress, knowing he couldn't interrupt it now. He turned to Dr. Zara, meeting her gaze. "Doctor, I need your help. Can you communicate with the Xindi fleet? Explain what we're doing here?" Dr. Zara hesitated, her scales flickering with indecision. Walter could see the conflict in her eyes, torn between duty to her people and the trust she'd begun to place in him. After a moment that felt like an eternity, she nodded. "I will do my best to explain the situation," she said, moving towards the door. As Dr. Zara left to handle the diplomatic crisis, Walter refocused on Lena. The treatment was entering its final phase, and he noticed something extraordinary happening. The energy being released from Lena's gland wasn't dissipating as expected. Instead, it seemed to be coalescing, taking on a tangible form. Walter watched in awe as a small, glowing orb materialized above Lena's abdomen. It pulsed in perfect synchronization with the bioluminescent patterns on her skin, as if it were an extension of her very being. Acting quickly, Walter activated a sterile force field, carefully containing the mysterious orb. His mind raced with possibilities. Could this be a key component of Xindi reproduction? An energy-based equivalent to human reproductive cells? As the procedure concluded, Lena's eyes fluttered open. She sat up slowly, her gaze immediately drawn to the glowing orb. A look of recognition passed over her face, as if she were seeing a part of herself for the first time. "The pain. It's gone," Lena said, her voice filled with wonder. She reached out towards the orb, her fingers stopping just short of the force field. "What is this?" Before Walter could respond, the medical bay doors slid open. Dr. Zara strode in, her scales shimmering with excitement. "I've managed to calm the fleet," she announced. "In fact, they're fascinated by what we've discovered. They're requesting permission to send additional medical observers to study this breakthrough." Commander Stone's voice came over the intercom once more. "Permission granted for a small delegation to board. We'll increase security measures, but maintain a welcoming atmosphere. Dr. Adams, prepare to brief our new guests." Walter nodded, though his attention was still fixed on Lena and the glowing orb. He began to explain his findings, detailing the intricacies of the procedure and his hypotheses about the energy release. As he spoke, Walter became acutely aware of Lena's gaze upon him. There was a new depth to the way she looked at him, respect, gratitude, and something more. The shared vulnerability of the experience had forged an unexpected connection between them. Walter found himself equally drawn to Lena. Her alien beauty, the depth of emotion in her large eyes, the way her skin shimmered with each subtle shift of mood. It was all utterly captivating. The sound of approaching footsteps in the corridor outside pulled Walter back to reality. The Xindi delegation would be arriving any moment. He took a deep breath, preparing himself for the complex dance of interspecies diplomacy that lay ahead. As Walter moved to greet the new arrivals, he caught Lena's eye once more. The look they shared spoke volumes. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The future of human-Xindi relations hung in the balance, and Walter knew that every word, every action in the coming hours would be crucial. The medical bay doors slid open, revealing the first members of the Xindi delegation. Walter straightened his posture, ready to guide them through the monumental discovery that lay within. As he began his explanation, he couldn't help but feel that they were standing on the brink of a new era, one of unprecedented cooperation and understanding between their species. Species. As the medical bay doors slid open, revealing the first members of the Xindi delegation, Walter felt a surge of anticipation. He straightened his posture, ready to guide them through the monumental discovery that lay within. "Welcome," Walter said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "I'm Dr. Walter Adams. Thank you for joining us." Ambassador Zix, a tall, imposing Xindi male with intricate scale patterns, stepped forward. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the room before settling on Walter. "Dr. Adams," he said, his translator converting the clicks and whistles of his native language into crisp English, "we are most intrigued by your findings." Walter nodded, gesturing towards the makeshift conference area that had been hastily set up in the medical bay. Holographic displays flickered to life, showcasing the data from Lena's treatment. "Please, make yourselves comfortable. I'll begin the presentation shortly." As the Xindi delegation settled in, Walter caught sight of Commander Stone positioning security personnel discreetly around the room. Their presence was a reminder of the delicate nature of this encounter. Walter took a deep breath and began his presentation. He spoke clearly and concisely, carefully avoiding complex medical jargon as he explained Lena's condition and the treatment he had developed. "The key," he said, manipulating a holographic model of Xindi anatomy, was in understanding the energy dynamics of the reproductive gland. The Xindi scientists leaned forward, their skin pulsing with excitement as they absorbed the information. One of them, a female with iridescent scales, raised a hand. "And the bioelectric therapy, how did you modulate it to interact with our physiology?" Walter delved into the technical details, acutely aware of Ambassador Zix's piercing gaze. The ambassador's initial skepticism seemed to be giving way to genuine interest. Throughout the presentation, Walter found his attention repeatedly drawn to Lena. She sat at the edge of the group, her large eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his heart race. Her skin emitted a soft, warm glow that seemed to intensify whenever their gazes met. Walter struggled to maintain his professional demeanor, forcing himself to focus on the holographic displays. As he concluded his explanation, Ambassador Zix leaned forward, his scales shimmering with what Walter had come to recognize as deep thought. "Dr. Adams," he began, his tone measured, "while your findings are undoubtedly fascinating, I must ask, what are the ethical implications of this procedure? How might this impact Xindi society?" Walter nodded, having anticipated this line of questioning. "Ambassador, I assure you that ethical considerations have been at the forefront of our minds throughout this process. This discovery was made in collaboration with Dr. Zara and with Lena's full consent. We see this as an opportunity for mutual benefit and understanding between our species." The ambassador seemed to consider this, his scales rippling in a complex pattern. Before he could respond, however, a sudden commotion drew everyone's attention. The energy orb produced during Lena's treatment, which had been contained in a force field, began to pulse erratically. Its glow intensified, and the instruments monitoring it emitted a series of alarmed beeps. The Xindi scientists rushed to examine it, their own instruments out and scanning furiously. "The energy output is increasing exponentially," one of them reported, his voice tight with concern. Walter's mind raced, assessing the situation. "We need to stabilize it," he said, moving quickly to the bioelectric equipment. "I believe we can use a modified version of the treatment device to regulate the energy flow." He looked to the Xindi scientists, seeking their approval. After a moment of tense silence, they nodded. Walter's fingers flew over the controls, recalibrating the device. With a deep breath, he initiated the stabilization process. The room held its collective breath as the equipment hummed to life. Gradually, the orb's pulsations began to slow, its glow dimming to a steady, manageable level. Just as Walter was about to sigh in relief, the orb emitted a final, powerful burst of energy. The pulse washed over the room, enveloping both humans and Xindi. Walter, standing closest to the orb, felt a strange tingling sensation course through his body. His senses sharpened, colors becoming more vivid, sounds more distinct. Around him, he saw the Xindi's skin erupting in dazzling patterns, their bioluminescence responding to the energy surge. As the effects subsided, a hushed silence fell over the room. Ambassador Zix was the first to break it, his voice filled with a newfound respect. "Dr. Adams," he said, "your quick thinking may have averted a disaster. More importantly, you've demonstrated a level of understanding and adaptability that is most impressive." The ambassador's scales shimmered as he continued. "In light of this, I propose a joint human-Xindi research initiative. We could exchange medical knowledge and technology, work together to unlock the mysteries of Xindi physiology, and develop new treatments that could benefit both our species." Commander Stone stepped forward, his eyes alight with the possibilities. "Ambassador, we would be honored to participate in such an initiative. Perhaps we could establish a permanent Xindi presence here on the station to facilitate the research." Ambassador Zix nodded, his gaze sweeping the room before settling on Dr. Zara. "An excellent suggestion. Dr. Zara, would you be willing to lead the Xindi research team?" As the details of the new initiative were being discussed, Walter noticed Lena approaching him. Her skin was pulsing with an unfamiliar pattern, and there was a determined look in her eyes that made his breath catch. "Dr. Adams," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I want to volunteer as the first Xindi test subject for the ongoing research. My experience with the treatment, I believe it could be valuable." Walter felt a mix of excitement and apprehension at her offer. The scientist in him recognized the unique opportunity this presented. But another part of him, a part he was trying hard to ignore, thrilled at the prospect of working closely with Lena in the coming weeks. "Are you sure?" he asked, searching her eyes for any sign of hesitation. Lena nodded, her skin glowing warmly. "I am. I trust you, Dr. Adams, and I want to be part of this, whatever it is we've started here." As Walter agreed to her request, he couldn't help but feel that they were standing on the brink of something far more complex than a mere scientific breakthrough. The lingering effects of the energy burst seemed to have forged a connection between them, one that defied easy explanation. Commander Stone's voice cut through Walter's thoughts. "Dr. Adams, a word." The commander led him to a quiet corner of the medical bay, his expression serious. "Excellent work today, Doctor. But I need to remind you of the delicate nature of our situation here. Maintaining professional boundaries with our Cindy guests is crucial. Walter nodded, understanding the implied warning. But as he watched Lena prepare for her extended stay on the station, he knew that maintaining those boundaries would be easier said than done. The intersection of professional duty and personal desire promised to create a complex and potentially volatile situation in the days to come. As the medical bay began to return to normal operations, Walter turned his attention to preparing for the new research initiative. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, not just for the future of human-Xindi relations, but for navigating the uncharted waters of his growing connection with Lena. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Walter knew that his actions in the coming days would be crucial in shaping the outcome. As the medical bay settled into a new rhythm, Walter found himself increasingly drawn to the enigmatic energy orb produced during Lena's treatment. He set up a specialized containment chamber in a corner of the lab, equipping it with advanced sensors to monitor the orb's fluctuations. "Dr. Adams," Lena's melodic voice called out, pulling Walter's attention away from the control panel. "I've compiled the latest data on Xindi cellular regeneration. Would you like to review it together?" Walter nodded, his heart rate quickening as Lena approached. Her skin shimmered with subtle patterns, a mesmerizing display that never failed to captivate him. "Of course. Let's take a look." As they pored over the holographic displays, Walter couldn't help but notice how close they were standing. The faint scent of Lena's alien biology, reminiscent of ocean spray and ozone, filled his senses. He forced himself to focus on the data, acutely aware of Commander Stone's earlier warning about maintaining professional boundaries. Their late-night research sessions became a regular occurrence, with Walter and Lena working in companionable silence, broken only by the occasional discussion of a particularly interesting data point. On one such night, as they stood side by side, examining the energy readings from the orb, their bodies accidentally brushed against each other. The effect was instantaneous and electric. The orb pulsed rapidly, emitting a bright glow that filled the containment chamber. Simultaneously, Lena's skin erupted in a dazzling display of bioluminescence, patterns rippling across her body in waves of light. Walter gasped, a tingling sensation coursing through his body from the point of contact. What just happened?" Lena asked, her voice breathy with surprise. Walter's mind raced, analyzing the phenomenon. "I'm not sure, but I have a hypothesis. There might be a connection between Xindi bioluminescence, human bioelectrical fields, and the energy orb." Lena's eyes widened, her scientific curiosity evident in her expression. "That's fascinating. How can we test this?" "We'll need to design a series of controlled experiments," Walter said, already moving to the computer terminal. "Are you willing to participate as a test subject?" "Absolutely," Lena replied without hesitation. Over the next few days, Walter and Lena threw themselves into the new line of research. Each experiment required them to maintain physical contact while monitoring the orb's reactions. Walter found himself hyper-aware of every touch, every brush of Lena's skin against his. Her bioluminescence seemed to grow warmer and more intense with each test, while Walter experienced increasingly heightened sensations and an inexplicable feeling of connection to Lena. During one particularly intense experiment, as Walter held Lena's hand while adjusting the sensor array with his free hand, the energy orb suddenly flared. A shimmering field expanded from the containment chamber, enveloping both of them in a cocoon of pulsating light. Walter felt a rush of sensation unlike anything he had ever experienced. His mind seemed to expand, merging with Lena's in a moment of profound unity. He could feel her thoughts, her emotions, as if they were his own. Images flashed through his consciousness. Alien landscapes, unfamiliar constellations, the vast depths of Xindi history and culture. As quickly as it began, the phenomenon ended. The energy field dissipated, leaving Walter and Lena standing in the lab, physically unharmed but profoundly shaken. Did you feel that?" Lena asked, her voice trembling. Walter nodded, unable to find words to describe the experience. He looked at Lena, seeing her in a new light. The connection they had shared during the energy merge had intensified his growing attraction to her, making it increasingly difficult to maintain his professional demeanor. "We need to report this," Walter said finally, his voice hoarse. "Commander Stone and Dr. Zara need to be informed." Lena nodded in agreement, though Walter sensed her reluctance. He understood. Part of him wanted to keep this discovery to themselves, to explore this new connection without interference. But he knew the potential risks and ethical implications were too significant to ignore. As they made their way to Commander Stone's office, Walter's mind raced with the implications of their discovery. The potential for interspecies understanding was enormous, but so were the risks. And beneath it all, his growing feelings for Lena threatened to complicate matters further. Commander Stone listened to their report with a grave expression, his brow furrowed in concern. "I'm ordering a temporary halt to these experiments," he said finally. "We need to conduct a full review before proceeding any further." Dr. Zara, who had joined them midway through the briefing, leaned forward eagerly. "But Commander, the implications of this energy merge are astounding. We can't simply stop now. Perhaps we can continue under stricter safety protocols?" As the discussion unfolded, Walter found his attention drawn to Lena. Her skin pulsed with complex patterns, reflecting her inner turmoil. When their eyes met, he felt an echo of the connection they had shared during the merge. The sound of approaching footsteps in the corridor outside caught everyone's attention. A moment later, the door slid open, revealing Ambassador Zix. His scales shimmered with an intensity that Walter had come to recognize as agitation. "I've just been informed of this incident," the ambassador said, his translator struggling to convey the complex tones of his native language. "I demand a full report and will be personally overseeing the review of this research project." Walter straightened his posture, acutely aware that the next few moments could determine the future of the entire initiative. As he prepared to address the ambassador's concerns, he couldn't help but wonder how he would navigate the complex web of professional responsibility, scientific discovery, and personal desire that now surrounded him. As Walter prepared to address the ambassador's concerns, the tension in the room was palpable. Before he could speak, however, a shrill alarm pierced the air. Commander Stone immediately activated his risk communicator, his face grim as he listened to the incoming report. "We have a situation," he announced, his voice tight. "Ambassador Zix, it appears a delegation of Xindi scientists and security personnel has just docked at the station. They're demanding immediate access to our research facilities." Ambassador Zix's scales rippled with surprise, and what Walter interpreted as mild annoyance. "I was not informed of this," he said, his translator struggling to convey the complex tones in his voice. Commander Stone's teeth gritted. "Neither was I. But given the circumstances, I don't see that we have much choice. We'll grant them access, but I insist on maintaining a human security presence during the inspection." As they made their way to the medical bay, Walter felt a mix of apprehension and curiosity. The sudden arrival of additional Xindi personnel could complicate matters, but it might also provide an opportunity to showcase the potential of their research. The medical bay was a flurry of activity when the ice arrived. Xindi scientists, their scales shimmering with almost unchecked excitement, were already examining the equipment. Walter noticed Lena standing near the energy orb containment chamber, her skin pulsing with nervous energy. "Dr. Adams," Ambassador Zix said, his voice carrying a note of authority, "please explain the safety protocols in place for this experiment." Walter nodded, stepping closer to the containment chamber. He began detailing the multiple fail-safes and monitoring systems they had implemented, acutely aware of the scrutiny from both human and Xindi observers. As he spoke, a Xindi scientist moved closer to examine a nearby piece of human medical equipment. Before anyone could react, the scientist accidentally activated the device, causing a sudden power surge. The surge interfered with the orb's containment field, resulting in a brief but intense release of energy. The energy wave washed over everyone in the room, but its effects were most pronounced on Walter and Lena. Walter felt a tingling sensation spread across his skin, followed by an odd warmth. He looked down at his hands, shocked to see a faint bluish glow emanating from his skin, mimicking Xindi bioluminescence. Beside him, Lena gasped. Her natural glow had intensified dramatically, synchronizing with Walter's new emission. The sight stunned both the human and Xindi observers, creating a momentary pause in the tense atmosphere. Ambassador Zix was the first to break the silence. "Fascinating," he said, his scales shimmering with intense curiosity. "Dr. Adams, Ms. Lena, I believe we need a more thorough demonstration. You mentioned an energy merge phenomenon in your report. I want to see it." Commander Stone stepped forward, his expression wary. "Ambassador, I'm not sure that's wise. We haven't fully studied the effects of—" "I'll do it," Walter interrupted, seeing an opportunity to prove the value of their research. He turned to Lena, who nodded her agreement. Under the watchful eyes of both human and Xindi observers, Walter and Lena moved to stand on either side of the containment chamber. Walter could feel his heart racing, the newly acquired bioluminescence pulsing in time with his elevated heartbeat. As they made physical contact, joining hands across the chamber, the orb reacted immediately. A cocoon of shimmering light enveloped them, and Walter felt the now familiar sensation of his consciousness expanding. This time, however, the merge was more intense than ever before. Walter could see the outlines of their bodies blurring, partially phasing into each other. The sensation was both exhilarating and terrifying. In his mind's eye, Walter saw flashes of Xindi anatomy, complex biological processes unfolding with crystal clarity. He could feel Lena's presence, her thoughts and emotions intertwining with his own. The merge lasted longer than any previous attempt, allowing the observers to gather extensive data. When Walter and Lena finally separated, they were both visibly shaken but unharmed. "That was unprecedented," Walter said, his voice hoarse. "I think I understand Xindi physiology on a level I never thought possible." Lena nodded, her skin pulsing with excited patterns. "And I feel like I comprehend human biology in ways I couldn't before." Ambassador Zix's scales were practically glowing with excitement. "This is remarkable," he said, turning to Commander Stone. "We must expand this research program immediately. I propose bringing in more Xindi volunteers to participate in controlled merge experiments with human subjects." Commander Stone hesitated, clearly weighing the diplomatic implications. "I can see the potential benefits," he said slowly, "but we need to proceed with caution. I'll agree to an expansion of the program, but only with strict safety protocols and voluntary participation from both sides." As the details of the expanded research program were being discussed, Walter noticed something odd. The faint glow of his skin hadn't faded as he expected it would. If anything, it seemed to be stabilizing, becoming a permanent feature. He caught Lena's eye and saw recognition in her gaze. She too was experiencing changes. Her control over her bioluminescence seemed to have improved dramatically, and she was interacting with the human technology around her with newfound ease. Before they could discuss these developments, a commotion near the entrance to the medical bay caught everyone's attention. A junior officer burst in, his face pale with urgency. "Commander Stone, sir," he said, snapping to attention. "Long-range sensors have detected an unidentified vessel approaching the station at high speed. The energy signature, it doesn't match any known human or Xindi designs." The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly from excitement to tension. Commander Stone's expression hardened as he issued rapid-fire orders, placing the station on high alert. Ambassador Zix moved to a communication terminal, his scales rippling with concern. "I'm contacting the Xindi fleet for potential reinforcements," he announced. As alarms began to sound throughout the station, Walter and Lena exchanged a determined look. They had come too far, achieved too much, to let an unknown threat derail their progress now. "Whatever's coming," Walter said, his newly acquired bioluminescence pulsing with determination, "we'll face it together, for the sake of human-Xindi relations, for our research, for our future." Lena nodded, her own glow intensifying in response. As the station prepared for a potential confrontation, Walter couldn't help but wonder what new challenges and possibilities this approaching vessel might bring. As the station's alarms continued to blare, the tension in the medical bay was palpable. Suddenly, Commander Stone's communicator chirped. He listened intently, his expression shifting from concern to surprise. "Stand down alert status," he ordered, his voice carrying a mix of relief and bewilderment. "The approaching vessel has been identified. It's a Xindi medical ship. Ambassador Zix's scales rippled with a complex pattern that Walter interpreted as a mix of surprise and curiosity. A medical ship? I was not informed of any such deployment. Within minutes, the massive Xindi vessel, identified as the Zephyr, had docked with the station. Commander Stone, Ambassador Zix, Walter, and Lena made their way to the main airlock to greet the new arrivals. As the airlock cycled open, a team of Xindi officials emerged, led by a tall, imposing figure whose scales shimmered with an intensity that marked him as a being of significant status. Ambassador Zix stepped forward, performing the intricate greeting ritual of his people. "Welcome to our station. I am Ambassador Zix. May I inquire as to the purpose of your unexpected visit?" The lead Xindi inclined his head slightly. "I am Dr. Vex, Chief Physiologist of the Xindi High Council. We received reports of your energy merge experiments and were dispatched to investigate this unprecedented phenomenon." Commander Stone stepped forward, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Commander Stone, we're honored by your interest, Dr. Vex. However, I must stress that our research is still in its early stages." Dr. Vex's gaze swept over the assembled group, lingering on Walter and Lena. His eyes widened slightly as he noticed Walter's faint bioluminescence. "Fascinating," he murmured. "It seems the reports were not exaggerated. I request an immediate demonstration of this energy merge." Walter and Lena exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. They nodded in unison. "We'd be happy to oblige," Walter said, his newly acquired bioluminescence pulsing slightly with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The group made their way back to the medical bay, where the energy orb sat in its containment field. As Walter and Lena took their positions on either side of the chamber, Dr. Vex moved closer, his scales shimmering with intense curiosity. "Please, proceed," he urged. Walter took a deep breath, feeling the now familiar tingle of anticipation. He reached out, grasping Lena's hands across the containment field. The orb pulsed, and the shimmering cocoon of energy began to form around them. As their consciousness began to merge, Walter became aware of an additional presence. He opened his eyes to see Dr. Vex, standing far too close to the containment field. Before anyone could react, the energy field expanded, enveloping the Xindi physiologist. The sensation was unlike anything Walter had experienced before. His mind seemed to explode outward, encompassing not just Lena's thoughts and memories, but also the vast, alien landscape of Dr. Vex's consciousness. Complex Xindi biological processes unfolded before his mind's eye, intertwining with human physiology in ways he could barely comprehend. The merge seemed to last an eternity. When it finally dissipated, Walter stumbled backward, his head spinning. He looked down at his hands, shocked to see that his bioluminescence had intensified dramatically, now matching the brightness of a full Xindi. Lena gasped beside him. Walter turned to see that her scales now had visible human-like skin patterns interspersed among them. But it was Dr. Vex who drew everyone's attention. The Xindi physiologist stood transfixed, staring at his own body in disbelief. Patches of human-like skin had appeared amidst his scales, and a faint bioluminescent glow emanated from his entire form. "Extraordinary," Dr. Vex breathed, his voice a mix of awe and scientific excitement. "The implications of this. We must expand this research immediately. I propose the formation of a specialized team, combining human and Xindi expertise." Commander Stone nodded slowly, recognizing the diplomatic opportunity. "Agreed, but we'll need to implement stringent safety protocols." As discussions about the expanded research program unfolded, Walter found himself drawn to Lena. Their eyes met, and suddenly he could hear her thoughts as clearly as if she had spoken aloud. "Walter, what's happening to us?" Her mental voice echoed in his mind. Before he could respond, alarms began blaring once again. Commander Stone's communicator chirped urgently. "Commander," a voice crackled through the device, "long-range sensors have detected a massive energy surge from a nearby star system. Sir, it matches the energy signature of the human Xindi merges, but on an enormous scale." The room fell silent as the implications of this news sank in. Commander Stone's face hardened with determination. "Dr. Adams, Lena, Dr. Vex," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "I need you to focus all your efforts on understanding the connection between your experiments and this stellar phenomenon." The stakes just got a lot higher. As the research team sprang into action, Walter couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the brink of a discovery that could change the fate of not just humanity and the Xindi, but potentially the entire galaxy. Galaxy. Walter's mind raced with the implications of this new development, but he knew there was no time to waste. "Commander," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins, "we need to investigate this energy surge immediately. It could be the key to understanding the merge phenomenon on a cosmic scale." Commander Stone nodded, his expression grave. "Agreed. Prepare a shuttle for immediate launch. Dr. Adams, Lena, Dr. Vex, you'll lead this mission. We need your expertise on the front lines." Within the hour, Walter found himself aboard a specially equipped shuttle designed to withstand intense energy fields. Lena sat beside him, her scales shimmering with anticipation, while Dr. Vex occupied the pilot's seat, his newly acquired human-like patches of skin glowing faintly in the dim light of the cockpit. As they approached the source of the energy surge, the shuttle's sensors began to emit a series of urgent beeps. Walter leaned forward, studying the readouts with growing excitement. "There's some kind of spatial anomaly ahead," he reported, his eyes widening as he processed the data. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen." Dr. Vex manipulated the controls, bringing the shuttle to a halt at a safe distance from the anomaly. "Fascinating," he murmured, his scales rippling with scientific curiosity. "The energy signature is remarkably similar to that of our merges, but on an exponentially larger scale." As they watched, the anomaly seemed to shift and warp, revealing glimpses of something hidden within. Lena gasped, her bioluminescence pulsing with excitement. "Look!" she exclaimed, pointing at the view screen. "There's a structure inside." Walter's jaw dropped as the anomaly parted like a curtain, revealing an enormous alien construct. Its surface was a maze of intricate patterns and pulsing energy conduits, all converging on a central spire that seemed to stretch endlessly into space. "It appears to be some sort of energy collector," Dr. Vex observed, his voice filled with awe. "And if I'm not mistaken, it's drawing power directly from the nearby star." Walter's mind raced as he connected the dots. "That explains the similarities in energy signatures," he said, excitement building in his voice. "This collector must be the source of the energy we've been using in our merges. But who built it, and why?" Before anyone could respond, the shuttle's proximity alarms blared to life. Dr. Vex's hands flew across the controls, but it was too late. The alien structure had detected their presence, and its ancient defenses had awakened. Brilliant tendrils of energy lashed out from the collector, enveloping the shuttle in a web of crackling power. Walter felt a familiar tingling sensation wash over him, but this time it was far more intense than any merge he had experienced before. He heard Lena cry out beside him, and then the world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of sensations and memories. Walter felt his consciousness expand, merging not just with Lena's, but with Dr. Vex's as well. Their minds and bodies intertwined in ways he could never have imagined possible. The merge seemed to last an eternity, yet when it finally ended, only minutes had passed. Walter slumped in his seat, gasping for breath. As his vision cleared, he looked down at his hands and froze in shock. His skin now glowed with the full intensity of Xindi bioluminescence, pulsing in complex patterns that he instinctively understood. He flexed his fingers, marveling at the newfound strength coursing through his muscles. Beside him, Lena was undergoing her own transformation. The human-like skin patches that had appeared after their previous merge had expanded, now covering most of her body. Her eyes sparkled with an intelligence that seemed to transcend her previous capabilities. Dr. Vex, however, had undergone the most dramatic change. His form now appeared to be a perfect blend of human and Xindi traits, with the ability to shift between the two at will. As Walter watched in amazement, Dr. Vex's scales rippled and changed, alternating between his original Xindi appearance and a more human-like form. Before they could fully process their transformations, the alien structure pulsed with energy once more. This time, however, it wasn't an attack, A previously invisible doorway materialized on the structure's surface, directly in front of their shuttle. "It's inviting us in," Lena said, her voice filled with wonder. Dr. Vex nodded, his form settling into a balanced state between human and Xindi. "Our altered physiologies must have triggered some kind of recognition protocol. We should proceed with caution, but this may be our only chance to uncover the secrets of this place." Walter took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever lay ahead. "Let's do it," he said, his newly acquired bioluminescence pulsing with grit. As they docked with the structure and stepped inside, Walter felt a sense of awe wash over him. The interior was vast, filled with technology beyond his wildest imaginings. Holographic displays sprang to life around them, responding to their presence. "This is incredible," Lena breathed, her enhanced cognitive abilities allowing her to process the alien data streams with surprising ease. "It's some kind of database containing information about countless species across the galaxy." Dr. Vex moved to a central console, his merged physiology allowing him to interface directly with the alien systems. "According to this data, the structure was created by a race known as the Precursors," he reported, his voice filled with excitement. "They used energy-merging technology to study and catalog life forms throughout the universe." Walter was about to respond when a loud alarm echoed through the chamber. A new holographic display materialized, showing a map of the surrounding space. Dozens of unidentified ships were converging on their location. "We've activated some kind of distress beacon," Walter realized, his heart racing. "And now everyone's coming to claim this place for themselves." As they scrambled to understand the Precursor technology and find a way to protect both the station and the structure, Walter couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled upon something that would change the course of history, the fate of not just their mission, but potentially the entire galaxy, now rested in their hands. Newly merged hands, Walter knew they had to act fast. The fate of the station, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. "We need to activate the Precursor weapon," Walter said, his voice resonating with newfound authority. "It's our only chance against those ships." Lena nodded, her enhanced mind already processing the complexities of the alien technology surrounding them. "Agreed, but we'll need to merge again, Walter. This time, it'll be more intense than anything we've experienced before." Dr. Vex's form shifted, his scales rippling as he moved towards a central console. "I can modify the Precursor technology to accommodate your unique physiology," he said, his fingers flying across the alien interface. "But we must hurry. The station won't hold out much longer against this assault." As if to emphasize his point, the structure shuddered violently, the distant sound of explosions echoing through its vast corridors. Walter's enhanced senses picked up the faint scent of burning metal and ozone. "Do it," Walter said, gripping Lena's hand tightly. Dr. Vex worked with incredible speed, his merged physiology allowing him to interface directly with the alien systems. Within minutes, a section of the floor began to reshape itself, forming a smooth, pod-like chamber. "This will house you during the merge," Dr. Vex explained, his voice tight with urgency. "It's equipped with advanced monitoring systems to track your vital signs and energy output. But I must warn you, the risks are significant. The energy levels we're dealing with are unprecedented." Walter and Lena exchanged a look, their newly acquired abilities allowing them to communicate volumes without words. They stepped into the chamber together, their bodies already beginning to glow with anticipation. As the chamber sealed around them, Walter felt the familiar tingle of the merge begin to wash over him. But this time it was different. The sensation was far more intense, almost overwhelming in its power. He felt his body begin to phase into Lena's, their forms blurring and combining in ways that defied comprehension. Outside the chamber, Dr. Vex watched in awe as the energy readings spiked dramatically. The alien structure hummed to life around them, long dormant systems flickering on one by one. Corridors that had been dark for millennia suddenly blazed with light. In orbit around the station, the battle raged on. Commander Stone's voice crackled over the comms, strained but determined. "We've got multiple breaches on the outer hull. Security teams, converge on sectors 7 through 12. We can't let them reach the civilian areas." Ambassador Zix, his diplomatic robes discarded in favor of a more practical combat suit, moved with surprising agility through the station's corridors. His Xindi abilities proved devastatingly effective against the boarding parties, his bioluminescence flaring as he engaged the invaders in close-quarters combat. Back in the merge chamber, Walter and Lena's consciousness expanded beyond their physical forms. The vast Precursor database opened up before them, millennia of accumulated knowledge flooding their shared mind. They saw the true purpose of the technology they had stumbled upon, a means to facilitate peaceful coexistence and knowledge exchange between different species across the galaxy. As they delved deeper into the merge, their physical bodies underwent further transformations. Walter's skin developed intricate patterns of Xindi-like scales, while Lena's human features became more pronounced. Their merge form pulsed with energy, each wave interacting with the alien structure around them. Dr. Vex monitored the process with growing concern. The energy output was approaching critical levels, far beyond anything he had anticipated. He realized with a start that if the merge continued at this intensity, there was a very real risk of permanent fusion between Walter and Lena. "Energy levels are becoming dangerously high," he muttered, his scales rippling with anxiety. "I may need to terminate the merge prematurely." Just then, the structure shuddered violently. A holographic display sprang to life, showing the space around the station. The hostile ships that had been pressing their attack suddenly found their weapon systems disabled, enveloped in a powerful energy field emanating from the Precursor structure. Commander Stone's voice came through again, this time filled with cautious optimism. "Whatever you're doing in there, it's working. The enemy vessels are falling back. Prepare for counterattack." Dr. Vex allowed himself a moment of relief, but it was short-lived. The energy field generated by the structure was expanding rapidly, threatening to engulf the entire star system. He realized with growing horror that Walter and Lena's merge had triggered a chain reaction in the ancient technology, one with potentially catastrophic consequences. "I need to separate them," Dr. Vex said, his hands flying across the alien interface. He had discovered a sequence in the database that suggested a method for controlled demerging, but it was risky. One wrong move could result in the loss of both Walter and Lena. As Dr. Vex prepared to initiate the demerging process, a new alert blared through the structure. The station's long-range sensors had detected a massive fleet of ships approaching at high speed. Initial scans indicated vessels from multiple species, including some entirely unknown to both humans and Xindi. The situation, already complex, had just become exponentially more complicated. Dr. Vex knew he had to act fast. With a deep breath, he began the delicate process of separating Walter and Lena, all while the future of the cosmos hung in the balance. With a deep breath, he initiated the complex sequence to separate Walter and Lena. The effect was immediate and intense. The chamber housing the merged pair began to pulse with blinding light, and the entire structure shuddered violently. Dr. Vex's scales rippled with anxiety as he monitored the rapidly fluctuating energy levels. Inside the chamber, Walter felt as if his very essence was being torn apart. The sensation was excruciating, yet strangely exhilarating. He could sense Lena's presence, their consciousness intertwined even as their physical forms began to separate. Lena's voice echoed in his mind, a mixture of pain and wonder. "Walter, I can still feel you. It's like we're still connected somehow." As the demerging process continued, the Precursor structure responded to their linked consciousness. Ancient machinery whirred to life, and holographic displays flickered into existence around them, revealing star charts and data about countless alien species. Outside the structure, Commander Stone's voice crackled over the comms. "Dr. Vex, we've got a situation up here. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet of ships approaching at high speed. Multiple species, including some we've never encountered before." Dr. Vex's hands flew across the alien interface, struggling to maintain control over the demerging process while processing this new information. "Understood, Commander. I'm doing my best to stabilize the situation here, but it's proving more difficult than anticipated." The energy field surrounding the Precursor structure began to pulsate rhythmically, sending out waves of exotic particles that interacted with the approaching ship's propulsion systems. Several vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel, forced to approach more cautiously. Commander Stone, recognizing the potential for both conflict and diplomatic opportunity, made a snap decision. All hands, maintain defensive readiness. Ambassador Zix, I need you to coordinate with the incoming fleet. Let's try to establish peaceful communication before this turns into a firefight. Ambassador Zix, still catching his breath from the earlier combat, nodded grimly. I'm on it, Commander. I'll use the new communication arrays to reach out to the lead ship. As the ambassador worked to establish contact, Walter and Lena's partially merged consciousness began to interface directly with the Precursor systems. Their minds expanded, accessing deeper levels of the alien database. Suddenly, a flood of information washed over them. Images of cosmic events, star systems in peril, and civilizations facing extinction flashed through their shared mind. They realized with growing horror that they had uncovered information about an impending galactic-scale event that threatened all known species. Dr. Vex, Walter called out, his voice strained. We need to tell Commander Stone. There's something coming, something big. It's why all these species are suddenly interested in this technology. Before Dr. Vex could respond, Ambassador Zix's voice came through the comms. Commander, I've made contact with the lead ship. They're a species called the Harmonians, energy-based beings. Their leader, Zixis, is requesting permission to send a delegation to observe our research. Commander Stone's reply was terse. Grant them limited access, but keep them away from the Precursor structure for now. We need to understand what we're dealing with first. As the station prepared for the arrival of the Harmonian delegation, Dr. Vex struggled to complete the demerging process. Walter and Lena's vital signs became increasingly erratic, their partially merged consciousness interfacing more deeply with the Precursor systems. Suddenly, the energy field generated by the structure contracted, focusing into a tight beam directed at a specific point in space. Long-range sensors detected the formation of a spatial anomaly at the beam's target location. Walter and Lena's physical forms finally separated, but their minds remained partially linked. As they emerged from the chamber, they found themselves changed. Walter felt a new awareness of the energy fields around him, while Lena discovered she could intuitively understand the alien technology surrounding them. What's happened to us? Lena asked, flexing her fingers, as if testing a new limb. Before Walter could answer, Commander Stone's voice came through once more, tension evident in his tone. Dr. Vex, we've got civilians panicking up here. Whatever's going on down there, we need answers fast. The Harmonian delegation is about to dock, and we've got more ships entering the system, including some of those hostiles from earlier, now broadcasting messages of truce. Walter and Lena exchanged a glance, their linked minds processing the implications of what they had discovered. Commander, Walter said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. We need to talk. What we've learned changes everything. The entire galaxy is at risk, and this station might be the key to saving it all. As alarms blared and the station bustled with frantic activity, Walter, Lena, and Dr. Vex prepared to meet with the Harmonian delegation. The future of not just their mission, but of countless civilizations across the galaxy, now hung in the balance. And at the center of it all stood two beings, no longer fully human or Cindy, their interspecies bond a symbol of the cooperation that might just save them all. As Walter and Lena emerged from the chamber, their partially merged consciousness still processing the vast influx of information, Commander Stone's voice crackled over the intercom once more. We need you in the command center immediately, he said, his tone urgent but controlled. The situation has escalated beyond our initial assessment. Shh. Walter and Lena exchanged a glance, their shared mental link allowing them to communicate without words. They hurried through the corridors of the station, their newly altered physiology granting them enhanced speed and agility. Upon entering the command center, they found a scene of organized chaos. Holographic displays flickered with data streams, showing the approaching fleet of alien vessels. Commander Stone stood at the center, his face etched with concern as he coordinated the station's response. Walter, Lena, he acknowledged them with a nod. What you've uncovered changes everything. We're facing a threat on a scale we've never encountered before. Dr. Vex, his scales shimmering with nervous energy, stepped forward. The data you've accessed from the Precursor database, it's beyond anything we could have imagined. We're not just dealing with localized conflicts or territorial disputes. The entire galaxy is at risk. Walter took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their discovery settle upon him. The energy wave from the galactic core, he began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. It's not just a natural phenomenon, it's a byproduct of some ancient cosmic event that's been building for millennia. Lena continued, her mind seamlessly picking up where Walter's left off. If we don't find a way to counter it, every technological civilization in the galaxy could be wiped out in an instant. Commander Stone's eyes widened as he processed the implications. Then we need to act fast. I'm authorizing the creation of a specialized task force, effective immediately. Walter, Lena, you'll be leading it. As if on cue, the command center doors slid open, revealing Ambassador Zix, accompanied by a group of alien beings. Their forms shimmered and pulsed with nearly unleashed energy, casting an otherworldly glow throughout the room. Commander, Zix said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and trepidation. May I present Zixus, leader of the Harmonian delegation? Zixus stepped forward, its energy form coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly in their minds. We have sensed the approaching calamity and have come to offer our assistance. Our energy-based biology, combined with the Precursor technology, may hold the key to our collective survival. Dr. Vex's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity. A massive deflector shield, he mused, his mind racing with possibilities. Using the Harmonian's unique physiology as a conduit for the Precursor energy, it could work. Walter and Lena shared another silent exchange, their linked minds already grasping the intricacies of the plan. But it would require a stable, long-term energy merge, Lena said, her voice tinged with concern. Far beyond anything we've achieved so far. Zixus's form pulsed in agreement. The risks are significant, but the potential reward is the salvation of countless civilizations. Commander Stone's expression hardened with drive. We don't have the luxury of playing it safe. Walter, Lena, Dr. Vex, work with the Harmonians and any other willing species. Do whatever it takes to make this plan a reality. As the command center erupted into a flurry of activity, Walter felt a familiar tingle of energy coursing through his body. He turned to Lena, seeing his own mix of excitement and apprehension mirrored in her eyes. Are you ready for this? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Lena's response came not in words, but in a surge of shared emotion and persistence through their mental link. Together, they stepped forward to meet Zixus and the other alien representatives, prepared to push the boundaries of interspecies cooperation to their absolute limit. Over the next few days, the station transformed into a hub of frenetic activity. New research facilities sprang up overnight, seamlessly integrating with the existing Precursor structure. Alien scientists and engineers from a dozen different species worked side by side, their diverse anatomies and thought processes, bringing unique perspectives to the monumental task at hand. Walter and Lena found themselves at the center of it all, their hybrid physiology and merged consciousness serving as a bridge between the various species. They spent hours in intensive training sessions, learning to channel and control the vast energies they would need to harness. As they worked, their bond deepened, transcending the physical and mental realms. Stolen moments in quiet corners of the station became precious retreats from the constant pressure. Their touches, both physical and mental, conveyed a depth of emotion that words could never capture. Dr. Vex, monitoring their progress with a mixture of scientific fascination and parental concern, pulled them aside after a particularly grueling session. I need you both to understand the full implications of what you're undertaking, he said, his scales rippling with worry. This level of merge, it could result in permanent physiological changes. There's even a possibility of complete fusion of your consciousness. Walter and Lena absorbed this information in silence, their linked minds processing the risks and implications. Finally, Walter spoke for both of them. We understand, Doctor, but given what's at stake, we're willing to take that chance. As the deadline for implementing the Harmonian plan approached, tension on the station reached a fever pitch. Ambassador Zix worked tirelessly, mediating conflicts between the various species and maintaining a fragile peace amidst the growing stress. Then, just as the final preparations were being made, a new threat emerged. The station's long-range sensors detected a group of ships approaching at high speed, their intentions clearly hostile. Commander Stone's voice rang out over the station-wide comm system. "All hands to battle stations. We have multiple hostile vessels incoming. Security teams, prepare for potential boarding actions." Walter and Lena rushed to the specially constructed merge chamber within the Precursor structure, accompanied by Zixus and representatives from other cooperative alien races. As they entered, the ancient technology hummed to life, responding to their presence. "Whatever happens," Lena said, her hand intertwining with Walter's, "we're in this together." As they stepped into the swirling vortex of energy that filled the chamber, the station shuddered under the first impacts of enemy fire. The most ambitious energy merge in galactic history was about to begin, with the fate of countless civilizations hanging in the balance. Balance. As the energy vortex engulfed them, Walter and Lena felt their consciousness expand, merging not only with each other, but with the Harmonians and other alien representatives in the chamber. A blinding flash of light erupted, momentarily overwhelming their senses. When it subsided, they found themselves adrift in a vast mental landscape, their individual thoughts intertwining with those of the other participants. Through this unprecedented connection, Walter and Lena gained an intuitive understanding of the Precursor technology that surrounded them. Outside the chamber, chaos reigned. The station shuddered under the assault of enemy fire, the impacts reverberating through the structure. Commander Stone's voice echoed through the corridors, coordinating the defense efforts. "All available ships, engage the hostiles. Protect the station at all costs." In the command center, Ambassador Zix worked feverishly, his tentacles flying over the communication consoles. He reached out to the attacking vessels, his voice carrying a mixture of urgency and diplomacy. "This is Ambassador Zix of the Galactic Cooperative. We implore you to stand down. What we're doing here could save countless lives across the galaxy." Within the merge, Walter and Lena guided the collective consciousness, their shared experiences as the first successful human-Xindi merge, providing a unique perspective. They felt the ancient Precursor systems responding to their will, power conduits lighting up throughout the station. As they channeled the energy, a shimmering barrier began to form around the station. It started as a faint, iridescent bubble, rapidly expanding outward. The shield grew, encompassing not just the immediate area, but stretching far into space. Suddenly, the approaching galactic energy wave made contact with the newly formed barrier. The collision created a spectacular display of light and color, visible across several star systems. The shield held, but Walter and Lena felt the strain intensify. The merged consciousness vibrated with the effort of maintaining the barrier. Walter and Lena found themselves at the core of this mental maelstrom, their individual identities beginning to blur. In a moment of shared clarity, they realized the danger. "We need to stay anchored," Walter thought, his mental voice barely distinguishable from Lena's. "Our bond," Lena responded, her thoughts intertwining with his. "Focus on our memories, our experiences." They clung to their shared history, their first meeting, the initial merge experiment, quiet moments stolen between crises. As they focused on these touchstones, their sense of self solidified, providing a stable core for the expanding shield. Outside, the battle took an unexpected turn. Several of the attacking ships, witnessing the shield's effectiveness against the energy wave, broke off their assault. Ambassador Zix's voice crackled over the comms once more. "Commander Stone, 3 of the hostile vessels have signaled their surrender. They're requesting permission to dock." Stone's reply was terse, but relieved. "Granted, but keep them under heavy guard. We can't afford any internal sabotage now." As the immediate threat from the energy wave passed, Walter and Lena began the delicate process of unmerging. To their surprise, the separation occurred with unexpected ease. They found themselves back in their individual bodies, standing in the chamber surrounded by the alien representatives. But they were changed. Walter looked down at his arms, now adorned with patches of iridescent Xindi-like scales. He flexed his fingers, watching as they emitted a soft bioluminescent glow. Beside him, Lena examined her own transformation. Her previously scaled skin now smoother, more human-like in texture. Their eyes met, and without speaking, they knew their mental link remained intact. A wordless exchange of emotions flowed between them: relief, wonder, and a deepened sense of connection. As they exited the chamber, they were greeted by a chorus of cheers from the assembled crowd. Beings of various species crowded around them, their faces alight with hope and gratitude. Dr. Vex pushed through the throng, his scales shimmering with excitement. "Remarkable," he breathed, scanning them with a handheld device. "The physiological changes are stable, and your neural patterns show unprecedented levels of synchronization. This could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies biology." Commander Stone approached, his stern expression softened by a hint of pride. "Well done, both of you. Thanks to your efforts, we've not only neutralized the galactic threat, but potentially ushered in a new era of cooperation." Ambassador Zix slithered forward, his tentacles gesticulating enthusiastically. "Indeed, representatives from all participating species have expressed interest in forming a galactic council. They're suggesting this station serve as its headquarters." As the implications of their success began to sink in, Walter and Lena found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Scientists clamored to study their transformed physiology, while diplomats sought their insights on interspecies collaboration. Amidst the chaos, they managed to find a quiet moment alone. They stood together on an observation deck, overlooking the bustling station now filled with beings from countless worlds. Their hands intertwined, glowing softly with shared bioluminescence. "So," Walter said, his voice a mix of excitement and uncertainty, "what happens now?" Lena squeezed his hand, her mind brushing against his through their mental link. "I'm not sure," she replied, "but whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As they gazed out at the stars, they knew that their journey, both scientific and personal, was a long way to go. The galaxy had been saved, but new challenges and discoveries awaited. With their unique bond and hybrid physiology, Walter and Lena stood ready to help shape the future of interstellar cooperation.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.